This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
It's Golden Sense in full flight for the wire over Flashback, and Golden Sense have won the Santa Ana Derby.
Orb have won the Kentucky Derby. Thorsten
will take charge is surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call.
And Animal Kingdom wins the Dubai World Cup. Macho Man!
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining us. A little bit later on, we're going to be joined by Keith McCalmont from Woodbine. Woodbine's opening day is tomorrow. We'll have a little meet preview with Keith. And then coming up a little later on, Brian Nadeau of HorsePlayerNow.com. Going to preview some of the nice stakes action coming up on the weekend. So going to be focused on a big weekend of racing, again, with Woodbine opening up, Bluegrass, Arkansas Derby. And we're in that transition period. Arkansas Derby means Oaklawn winds up. And Woodbine openings, Oaklawn closes, Woodbine opens, and as I said the last couple of weeks, Fairground closed, and we're transitioning now. But importantly, I like to keep reminding people with the closure of Oaklawn, and they've started to float around already. Take a look at these Oaklawn horses as they move to other venues, because they come in, they come out of that Oaklawn meet and into other venues with, I think, just some added fitness level. It seems like year in and year out, those Oaklawn shippers are always very interesting. So we have another maybe 4 weeks of that or so to watch for after the Oaklawn meet ends, these horses moving to other venues. So got a nice weekend at Oaklawn still to go, but as I say, some Oaklawn horses are starting to show up at other places as well. Just want to remind you, this Sunday and next Sunday, of course, Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday, according to New York State law, which I think is something of an anachronism. I've said it before, but there is no racing in New York. There's no wagering allowed on racing. So Capital OTB will be closed both Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. Keep that in mind. Saturday, though, I do want to alert you to a couple of OTB promotions coming up. This Saturday, there is a Fan Appreciation Day at the Cortland branch. That's tomorrow, the Cortland branch. It is a Fan Appreciation Day. And then coming up next Friday, week from today, Fan Appreciation Day at the Star Plaza. So there are a couple of events, fan appreciation events out at the branches. Also want to remind you, towards the end of the month, right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, it is the $500 happy hour bankroll, and it should be fun. Again, that's the 25th, a Friday. Tim Wilkin and Mike Jarbo of the Times Union will be administering the $500 happy hour bankroll, so that should be fun. Keep that in mind as well. And don't forget, if you go to capitalotb.com, you can find all the events and promotions coming up in the month of April. Do want to remind you, I mentioned it yesterday, but just a reminder for folks who may not have been tuned in. The 23rd Annual Saratoga Horse Symposium takes place this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Saratoga County 4-H Training Center. That's at 556 Middle Line Road in Ballston Spa. It features educational presentations, live horse demonstrations, and riding clinics. It celebrates the horse for new, aspiring, and experienced horse owners and enthusiasts. There are some racehorse tie-ins, but some of the talks that will be given, presentations that will be made, equine wound care, saddle fitting, planning for lifetime care for horses, the mechanics of speed. And then on Sunday, there's a presentation, A Second Career for New York-bred retired racehorses. So that should be interesting as well. So again, coming up this weekend, the Saratoga County 4-H Training Center, the 23rd Annual Saratoga Horse Symposium. Keep that in mind. If you, again, you're a horse fan, or there is a little bit of racing tie-in as well. Just wanted to alert you to that. Talked a little bit about this on the Handicappers Report earlier. Interesting situation yesterday in Oaklawn. We're in the Racing Festival of the South at Oaklawn, which is that last week of racing. There's some high-quality racing pretty much every day. Yesterday, the stakes race on the Oaklawn card was the Grade 3 Count Fleet Sprint Handicap. Only had a field of 6 scheduled, but one of them was Secret Circle, with the winner of last season's Breeders' Cup Sprint for Bob Baffert. Baffert obviously bringing Bayern in for the Arkansas Derby. So a lot of times these guys, once they're shipping one out, they'll pack a few together and see what can happen in some of the other stakes. And Secret Circle was absolutely going to add some interest to things in that Count Fleet Sprint handicap yesterday. But Secret Circle scratched, which was kind of a head scratcher in and of itself. But there was a follow-up article in the Daily Racing Form, and a bizarre situation. Baffert was using the Ted Sutton airline, horse transport airline to move from Southern California and get the horse over to Oaklawn. And according to the Daily Racing Form article, the horse Secret Circle was just worked up a little bit, and the Ted Sutton folks gave the horse a tranquilizer. Situation I'd never heard of before. And Baffert himself said it was brand new to him. Once Baffert found out about it, he realized there's not enough time for the tranquilizer to go through the system, so we have to scratch the horse. And Baffert, obviously, in the connection's a little bit upset. And it was strange, just because Ted Sutton, that's their business, transporting racehorses. So it was kind of strange they did it. My partner on the handicapper support, Jeff Carl, former trainer, said maybe it was just a situation where they really had to give the tranquilizer. They didn't have any choice. It's hard to know what happened in exactly that situation, but it was a little bit of a head scratcher. And as I say, took a little bit of oomph out of that Count Fleet Sprint handicap yesterday. Wound up to be a little bit of an upset with the scratch-reduced field of 5 at 7-1, second longest price on the board. Lemon Drop Dream, Ricardo Santana, Steve Asmussen. That one gets it done just at the wire. Got up late over Alsvid, and as I say, a minor upset there. 7-1, but 5-horse field, second longest price on the board, so a little bit of an upset in the Count Fleet. But the disappointment, obviously, was losing Secret Circle. We talked a little bit about this with Dave Rodman yesterday, alluded to it anyway, and I touched on it over the past couple of weeks, I think. There's certainly been some things going on in Virginia with Colonial Downs and the horsemen down there as they approach their 2014 season. And the fact of the matter is there might not be a 2014 season, and it's increasingly looking like that. There's a battle going on between Colonial Downs and the Virginia Horsemen's Benevolent and Protection Association, which represents the horsemen racing at Colonial Downs. They've been trying to set the 2014 season. Horsemen want more dates. Colonial Downs wants less dates. They've subsequently come to an impasse, at which time Colonial Downs representatives broke off talks with the Virginia HBPA and stated they want the horsemen to come up with another organization to negotiate. The HBPA has now shot back and said track management wants its own horsemen's organization, not an independent VHBPA, so it can negotiate a sweetheart deal to reduce, if not eliminate, live racing in Virginia. Clearly, this is one of those situations where they're at loggerheads, and it is increasingly looking like there will not be a 2014 season for Colonial Downs. We'll see how this all shakes out, but that's unfortunate. That's, it's a unique track, unique setting, and really kind of part of the Maryland circuit. So if they don't run, it will be interesting to see how things shake out in that mid-Atlantic region and where some of these outfits wind up going and what the response is from some of the other jurisdictions as well. If you're a Tonalist fan, it looks like things could be set for that one. I am. Christophe Clement and his Tonalist. They were looking at the Wood Memorial. Christophe Clement decided not to go in the Wood Memorial, though, off of a workout that he wasn't enthusiastic about. But Christophe Clement now says that Tonalist probably will aim for the Grade 2 $200,000 Peter Pan at Belmont. And again, I think Tonalist is going to be a player in this 3-year-old division. So to me, very interesting, and we can look forward to Tonalist showing up in the $200,000 Grade 2 Peter Pan Stakes. So it'll be good to see him get back. Again, this is a lightly raced horse, but has shown some nice promise. On the other hand, a 4-year-old that has raced a number of times, obviously, and a number of times this season, and done so opening some eyes as a real player in the handicap division. Palace Malice is looking next at the Grade 3 $150,000 Westchester at Belmont on May 11th. Now, it's a Grade 3 $150,000. Why would this horse that seems to be a top player in the handicap division aim for that race? Well, they're using it as a building block to the Grade 1 Metropolitan Handicap Met Mile on June 7th. And the game plan is, according to Cott Campbell from Dogwood, the owners of Palace Malice, said they talked about it with Todd Pletcher, and they decided if they're going to look at the Met Mile, why not get a mile race into the horse on the Belmont Strip? So they'll get essentially a complete dress rehearsal, distance, track, with that Grade 3 Westchester on May 11th. And then if it doesn't turn out well, they say they'll just shift and go to a Plan D and look at the June 7th Brooklyn Handicap. Brooklyn is run at 1.5 miles, same distance at the Belmont as the Belmont Stakes, which Palace Malice won last year. So they got a couple of options going out off of this Westchester, but that will be the next spot for Palace Malice. Again, one of the bright stars at this point in that handicap division, and pointing now for next up, May 11th, Westchester. Numbers have come out for Fairgrounds, and not surprising. The Fairgrounds meet, obviously, this is something I've talked about the last week and a half or so, but the Fairgrounds meet a little bit disappointing this year. There was certainly some pushback from fans and horsemen alike towards the ownership, Churchill Downs, and how their handling of Fairgrounds was a little bit disappointing this season. Now, some of that was due to the weather, but some of it also, you know, they lost turf races, and part of that seems to be blamed also perhaps on the track itself, and it just doesn't drain as well as it should maybe, but they lost some turf races early on. And again, numbers are out. All sources average daily handle at Fairgrounds down 12%. That's a fairly significant number. It was also interesting to see the number of starters has declined over the past 3 seasons. They go back to the 2011-2012 season. They had averaged 8.48 starters, 8.2, 2012 to 2013, and then this past season, just 7.88. So again, 2 seasons back, 8.48. This season, 7.88. That obviously affects handle, the number of horses, you know, the field size and whatnot. Grass races for me, and again, I didn't play Fairgrounds as much this season as I normally do, and part of the reason I like Fairgrounds is because of the grass racing. And early on, they were having a lot of trouble getting on the grass, obviously with the weather and drainage issues. But overall, 149 grass races were run. That compares to last year, 166. So it wasn't a super significant difference in there. But 17 turf races, and you know, 17 turf races is essentially 2 full cards of racing. Those races get moved over to the main track. Fields get reduced, and so I'm sure that affected handle too. So again, numbers disappointing at Fairgrounds, as we've talked over the past couple of weeks. There's been some pushback towards Fairgrounds ownership, Churchill Downs. We'll see how that shakes out. We'll certainly hear more and more and more about that prior to Fairgrounds opening next season. If something has to shake out, I think there has to be a situation where the horsemen fans in Churchill Downs come to some meeting of the minds on the Fairgrounds season next year. But Churchill Downs and the ownership there, the big weeks at Churchill, have some other fires to put out, because news also from the past 24 hours, Churchill Downs with their signature meet, the Churchill Downs Spring Meet, they're planning to raise takeout. According to an article in the Courier Journal, they're raising takeout to the legal limits. They're taking it to where they can. And there was some absolute pushback on social media, as you can imagine, yesterday after that announcement from Churchill Downs. Moving the takeout up, the Churchill Downs representatives said that they had to do that to keep the purses to where they wanted to be so they could attract the top names, the top stables, and the good horses. But there was some brutal pushback. I have some of this stuff linked on Equidaily this morning. You can see the news story about the takeout increase, and you can also read some of that social media pushback as well. But that's a story that will play out over the next few days. Certainly as we get in here, the beginning of next week, we'll have a better idea of what the the follow-up to all that was. But again, Churchill Downs for the spring meet, looking to raise takeout. Also, over the past couple of days, the ESPN Triple Crown ranking poll came out. Just like to go over these polls and just give you an idea of where some of the pundits are going off of weekend stakes races. And last weekend stakes races, boy, in a what have you done for me lately kind of scenario, the ESPN voters, of which I am one, absolutely impressed with the results last week as California Chrome moves up to number 1 on the poll, the ESPN poll, from number 2 last week. So it wasn't a huge jump for California Chrome. But Wicked Strong, winner of the Wood Memorial, comes from not being ranked at all last week to number 2 on the poll. So again, last weekend's results certainly impressed the ESPN voters. I didn't have Wicked Strong at all. I had California Chrome at number 4 on my list. So California Chrome had already been on my list, jumped up about 5 spots. I was a little bit impressed by him. Still not totally convinced on Wicked Strong. The horse that took a little bit of a beating last week, Candy Boy, went from number 1 to a tie for number 8. And a little bit of a head scratcher here. Bayern, who did not run last week, moves on to the list at number 10. Hadn't been on the top 10 last week, but jumps on at number 10. And my list this coming weekend, obviously we have Arkansas Derby Bluegrass coming up, so there's the potential to shake things up in and of itself there. But on my list last week was Albano at number 8. He's now been declared off the Derby trail, so my list is definitely going to shake up. Currently, I have Tapiture number 1. I have Conquest Titan number 6, Strong Mandate number 7, Bayer number 3. They're all running in the Arkansas Derby. So for my list, the Arkansas Derby is going to be a key indicator. Things will shake up for me on that ESPN poll come Sunday night when I have to send it in. All right, we'll head to our first break. When we come back, Keith McCalmont of Woodbine. Woodbine opens tomorrow. We'll get a little preview of their 2014 meet right after this.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Triple Threat on May 10th. So sign up today, online at CapitalOTB.com or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. With a newly designed and engineered internet wagering platform, enhanced video streaming, additional funding options, and 3 new individual wagering opportunities, CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. Combine that with our all-new mobile website. You have 2 of the most powerful, innovative, and advanced wagering platforms available today. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
It's called the fastest 2 minutes in sports, and the tradition continues Saturday, May 3rd with the 140th running of the Kentucky Derby. If you can't make it to the Clubhouse Racebook in Albany, you can still be a part of the action by visiting one of our many Easy Bet or branch locations conveniently located throughout upstate New York. For a complete list of our Easy Bet and branch locations, log on to CapitalOTB.com. Capital OTB and CapitalOTBBet.com. The most convenient ways to wager on all the Triple Crown races.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Friday morning. Friday morning, the eve of the opening of Woodbine for the 2014 season. Happy to be joined now by Keith McCalmont of Woodbine. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. Happy to have you on board and happy to see things getting revved up north of the border again for the 2014 season. Give us a little update for folks who maybe are going to take a look and play some action at Woodbine this weekend. What's your weather look like?
It is 15 Celsius here at the moment. It's beautiful. It's the first time in probably 3 months that we've strung together 2 sunny days in a row. So there's a lot of happy faces out on the backstretch.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear. And how long have the horses and horsemen been at Woodbine getting ready for the meet, training and whatnot?
They came back in February, and it's been real cold and real snowy here, and because of the weather condition, we didn't even get the main track open until last Friday. So a lot of the workouts you're going to see posted, at least early on, are on the dirt training track. And I think in terms of handicapping, horses who wintered out in Florida and took down south may have a bit of a fitness advantage in these opening weeks.
Okay, very good. And why don't we go over, just for folks who are going to key in, as I say, to the 2014 meet, let's update them a little bit on maybe some of the human element they should be paying attention to. Luis Contreras, the leading jockey, last year, I think the past couple of years, in fact, will be back. Mark Casse, of course, leading trainer, he's going to be back. Chantel Sutherland returns to Woodbine, where she has done so well in previous years, comes back from being in Southern California for a while. Give us a little update on some of the human side and who we should be paying attention to.
Well, I think you hit it right on the nail on the head there with Luis Contreras. He's in peak form right now. He's been our leading rider for good reason for a number of years now. Those of you who watched the Wood Memorial last weekend saw him put in a hell of a ride with social inclusion from just an impossible spot. And Contreras is a guy who's been noted as like a sort of a wide closing rider, but he won a Grade 1 in a sprint on the front end the next race out with Dad's Caps. I think he's going to have a big opening weekend. Chantal being back is great. It's another quality rider for the track, and she wasn't getting the best amounts out in California, and I think her stock's going to improve and her numbers are going to go up.
Yeah, she should be an interesting re-addition to the Woodbine jockey colony. As I said, she did so well there earlier in her career, so she's going to be very, very interesting to watch. Let's update also for folks who don't, I'm particularly keyed into the stakes calendar out there. Let's update some of the highlights. And Keith, while we talk, I'm just going to pull up what certainly was a highlight last year, the September 15th Woodbine Mile. We're going to watch the number 4, Wise Dan get it done. Two-time Horse of the Year. Not bad getting a horse like that up to run at your track. And again, this was the Woodbine Mile. That's certainly one of the highlights of your racing calendar every year. Give us some of the other highlights as well.
This year, the Woodbine Oaks is shaping up to be a very good race in June. We've got top filly by the name of Paladin Bay, and returning filly who we're going to see on opening day here by the name of Regal Conqueror, who probably could be starting your pick 4 and could win a $500,000 race in June. The Queen's Plate is Sunday, July 6th, $1 million race for 3-year-old Canadian breds. It's our Kentucky Derby and the oldest continuously run race in North America. 155th year we're going into here. And, one of the favorites for the Derby right now, We Miss Artie, is a Canadian bred. So we have a chance to see maybe a little bit of history repeating itself with in the 50th anniversary of Northern Dancer winning the Derby and the Plate.
And speaking of the Queen's Plate, I pulled up the winter book odds, and it was kind of interesting because sitting at a decent little 15-1, a horse called Heart to Heart, and we're going to pull up an allowance from Keeneland just the other day. We're going to watch Heart to Heart win that allowance race at Keeneland. The number 1 horse will be Heart to Heart as we watch this video replay. As you say, We Miss Artie, the morning line favorite, Ken Ramsey's horse. Heart to Heart, though, looked pretty good winning the other day and probably had to attract some attention with regard to that future book price of 15-1.
Yeah, I was definitely dialed into this colt. I thought he looked a little bit rank and kind of running off a little bit, to be honest with you. But Leparoux did a good job, sort of, wrangling that speed and got the job done. And English Channel's an interesting sire. A couple years ago, we had a plate winner here named Straight of Dover, who was an English Channel and was another sort of pace presence type horse. So there's some history to that.
And again, we're watching them come under the wire there, so nice little win down there at Keeneland. And as you say, Queen's Plate comes up in July, so we'll keep our eyes potentially on that one. We're still a little bit of a ways away, but could be kind of interesting. Keith, also wanted to mention you have coming up tomorrow, and I wanted to mention this because I have a link over on Equidaily. Tomorrow you have a seminar at Woodbine with Jim Mazier. going to give a Woodbine handicapping seminar. And as I say, I mention it because I have it linked on Equidaily. That'll be streamed live, correct?
It'll be streamed live from 11 a.m. It's Jim's here in person on the second floor grandstand, but if you follow that link, there's also links there to all of Jim Mazur's handicapping materials, which are awesome. I mean, he goes super in depth into little tricks to look for in terms of which trainers are ready and little stats, second off the layoff, and things like that. It's probably about $400 worth of handicapping material for free, so you could definitely get over to Equidaily and hit the link.
Nice. And also, I have a link over there because Briss was kind enough to put up past performances for the Pick 4 tomorrow at Woodbine. And I wonder if you had maybe one or two in that Pick 4 that you found interesting tomorrow.
Yeah, Ed DeRosa linked over those Pick 4s from Brisnet, and I've been studying all week. I think the opening race is where I'm going to try and get my single, and that's with a horse named Regal Conqueror. She's a 3-year-old filly taking on Older, and it's only 5 furlongs, but she's a very quick horse. She's very well-bred. She's out of a multiple graded stakes winning dam named Classic Stamp, and she's only had 3 races, but if you look at her last race, it wasn't too good. And I spoke to Darwin Benak, the trainer, last night, and he told me that she had a bit of a lung infection after the second race, and he thinks she might have been just a little bit short. So he's taken the blame for that third start, and he's been training his horses in Ocala at Nelson Jones Training Center. They're all dead fit. He's absolutely raving about this horse. That's my single to get things started.
All right, that's in race number 4, Regal Conqueror. Got maybe one more to toss into the mix?
Yeah, race 6. There's Dave Cody has a filly or mare named Penelopus. Cody's been at the track since February when it opened, when we were still shoveling snow and wearing gloves, and she's got a huge work tab on her, and I think she's ready to roll and definitely fits at that class. And in the race before that, in race 5, that's probably your scramble race. I'd want to hit 6 or 7 horses in there. So maybe if you single Regal Conqueror, single Penelopus, you'll leave yourself a little bit of room in the other 2 legs.
Sounds good. I like it. And again, the PPs for that Pick 4 tomorrow linked over at Equidaily, so you can delve into those and maybe play the Pick 4 opening day at Woodbine. Keith, we'll wrap things up, but before we wrap things, well, first I should just ask you a general question. Is there anything I haven't touched on? Are there any new additions to the Woodbine season, promotions or whatnot people should know about?
We offer our 20-cent tries, Pick 3s, Pick 4s. We've got the $100,000 guaranteed Pick 4s each weekend. And we're continuing with our jackpot high 5 bet in the last race of every card, and that's at a 20-cent minimum. So, we're going to start building that pool up again starting opening day, but there's some very competitive races this weekend, and we've got full fields lined up, so there's lots to chew on for handicappers.
And I should also ask you, we're in the midst, obviously, we talked about up at Woodbine coming up in July, the Queen's Plate. You're essentially the Canadian Kentucky Derby, to draw the analogy. But our own Kentucky Derby, I'm wondering if there are rooting interests for the folks north of the border coming up first Saturday in May.
There's a very big race this weekend at Keeneland, which to me is a Queen's Plate prep in the Bluegrass. You've got Coltimus Prime and Asserting Bear, who are both Canadian breds and listed in the top 10 of our winter book. Emma Jane Wilson is down to ride Asserting Bear for Reed Baker. Unfortunately, they drew the rail, which isn't always the best thing there, but it's a talented horse. And there's another Canadian trainer in that race, Katerina Vasilieva, who has Big Bazinga. And I think that horse is a little bit live at a long price. It's a Kentucky bred, but I think it ran a deceptively good race in the Spiral and could hit the board at 30 to 1 or so in the Bluegrass.
And I'll ask your opinion on a horse that I kind of like in the Arkansas Derby, because it's a horse you had a chance to see win the Swinford up there for Mark Casse, Conquest Titan.
Yeah, Mark had a real tough time figuring out what to do with that horse. It's a horse with tactical speed who likes to close from deep. And so I think the horse gets out of the gate and wants to go, and but its best way of racing is just to settle and sit at the back. So it took them a while to get that horse running the way they wanted it to. Oaklawn that track day to day, you got to watch for the bias. So if it's a closing bias at Oaklawn, he should be in the mix.
All right, and as I say, I like that one a little bit, so I'm going to be interested to see how Conquest Titan did, because I think he's better than that last race. The race a couple of back said that I think he's got more talent than we saw last time. Keith, got to wrap things up, but before we do, certainly, again, it's opening day at Woodbine tomorrow, but tonight, the 2013 Sovereign Awards. Keith McCalmont up for at least a couple of awards here in the writing category, in the photography category as well. Keith, talk a little bit about what work of yours is up for the awards tonight.
Bet on me to show. It's tough. I've got a story about an exercise writer named Allison Walker who works for Roger Attfield, and that was nominated for the writing award. And then I've got a sort of a snow globe style picture from Racing in December here that's nominated in the photography category, but that's Mike Burns' bread and butter. I'd be very shocked if Mikey didn't win that category. And for Horse of the Year, which is sort of the big award of the night, Up With the Birds, who was a Grade 1 winner to end his 3-year-old campaign, is probably going to take that award, and he'll face some competition from Forte de Marmy.
And speaking of that, what did you think of the announcements of the Racing Hall of Fame inductees for this year with Wando on top there?
You know, it was sad that we lost Wando earlier this year. It's the toughest stories to write are, you know, the obits on friends and people and horses that you've come to know and love. And Wando was such a fan favorite around here, and what a classy horse to win our Triple Crown the way he did with such ease when everyone was working against him. It's a great thing to see Wando go into the Hall of Fame, and I know that'll help perk up the spirits of Mike Keogh and everyone in the Shigadance family. Yeah,
it's an interesting week with the nomination or the inductees being announced. Opening day tomorrow, and again tonight, the Sovereign Awards ceremony. And for folks who aren't familiar, Sovereign Awards, essentially again, an analogy similar to our Eclipse Awards down here in the United States. But again, Sovereign Awards tonight. Keith McCalmont up for a couple of them. We're rooting for you, Keith, so good luck. Thanks for the visit this morning, and certainly we'll be talking to you along the way for the Woodbine season.
Thank you, Seth. Hope to see you in Saratoga this summer and cash some tickets.
That's the game plan. Thanks a lot, Keith.
Take care.
Keith McCalmont of Woodbine. We'll take our next break. When we come back, Brian Nadeau of HorsePlayerNow.com. We'll take a look out at some of the stakes action on the weekend. Also get some of his thoughts on the 3-year-old stakes from last weekend that caught people's attention. So stay tuned. All of that up next.
Only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
It's called the fastest 2 minutes in sports, and the tradition continues Saturday, May 3rd with the 140th running of the Kentucky Derby. And there's only one place to watch it, the Clubhouse Racebook. To be a part of the excitement, reserve your seat today by calling 446-4010.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Friday morning. Friday means a big weekend of stakes action ahead, and we're happy to be joined now by Brian Nadeau of HorsePlayerNow.com to talk a little bit about those stakes. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, Seth. How's it going?
Very good. And before we preview, I wanted to review, because, again, with HorsePlayerNow.com, you're also tied in with your colleague Jeremy Plank's Countdown to the Crown and the early season package that was put together there, and you're looking at these 3-year-old races. So before we look ahead, I just wanted to get some thoughts on last weekend. What were your takeaways? First of all, from the Wood Memorial, Wicked Strong, who I think with that closing kick adds a nice piece of intrigue to the potential pace scenario in the Kentucky Derby. The photo for second that Samrat won out could be interesting if it excludes social inclusion, because that was going to be a pace story as well. But what was your takeaway from the Wood Memorial?
Yeah, I think definitely, Seth, I thought social inclusion really ran well. I mean, I was on the show last week with you, and I had no use for him. He really impressed me, actually. I think he'll be a major player. Hopefully he runs in the Preakness. He doesn't need to run in the Derby. I know they're going to go if he does get in. But I was impressed with him fighting. You know, he didn't make the lead. He broke slow, and then he was, you know, clear in mid-stretch. So I was pretty impressed with him, but certainly coming out of the Wood, to me, you know, Wicked Strong is the only horse to pay any attention to for the reasons you mentioned. You know, the race flow should really suit him at Churchill Downs. If there's a little caveat, the only 2 times he's ever done any running has been over the main track at Aqueduct, so that would be a little bit of a worry to me. But he certainly looked pretty good, you know, closing through the lane on Saturday.
Let's go out to Southern California. Obviously, folks were impressed. I just read the ESPN poll. California Chrome hit the top spot there, plus a number of the other pundits who put out their Derby 10s and Derby dozens this week. I moved California Chrome up to 4 on my personal list just because of that potential pace scenario out there. I think he's going to add to the speed. Now, he did sit off the early speed last Saturday, but just off of it. A lot of folks that I've talked to this week have also said, you know, watch out, sneaky good performance potentially from Opportunity there. Candy Boy runs 3rd. What were your thoughts in the Santa Anita Derby?
Well, I think definitely set the California Chrome, if nothing else, goes to Kentucky as a pretty legitimate favorite. Now, is he going to win? You know, he's not going to be my pick because of that pace. And I think he's got, you know, you could pick apart his form a little bit. He wired the field in the San Felipe on that crazy fast big cap day, and then Saturday he sat off a maiden who went, I think, 47-1. That's not happening in Kentucky. But I think his last 2 races, hands down, the 2 most impressive races of any 3-year-old this year. But I think, Seth, to me, you really hit on the horse a little bit. Opportunity, if folks want to watch that race again. Check out the gallop out on that horse, who probably wasn't cranked at all, just needed a spot to run, didn't need points. To me, going forward at 1.25 miles in Kentucky, he's pretty interesting to me because he can sit off of it, he can rally, and he really, really galloped out impressively after the wire in the Santa Anita Derby. So I'll definitely have him pretty high on my radar from Louisville.
All right, let's, before we get to tomorrow's 3-year-old events and a little more, we'll look at a couple today. Just wanted to get your opinions. We talked a little bit about them earlier on the Handicappers Report, but 2 nice Grade 1 events for a Friday afternoon as Oaklawn winds up their meet, Racing Festival of the South. That will include the Grade 1 Apple Blossom this afternoon. It's a short field, but it's interesting because it's the 2nd race of the season at Close Hatches. She was so nice as a 3-year-old last year, and with Princess Asilmar coming back successfully, this could be yet another addition to yet another division that could be very interesting this year, the older fillies and mares. Close, On Fire Baby is in this race as well. She won the race last year. I'm not sure she's as good this year as she was last year, but, she upset the race, and I think she's an interesting addition to the race. But with a field of 5, looks like it all goes through Close Hatches.
Yes, that's actually On Fire Baby is going to be my pick today. Just a kind of a tepid pick over Close Hatches. She goes second off the layoff. Like you mentioned, she won this race last year. Close Hatches really was pretty impressive winning the Azeri last out, her seasonal debut. But she set the pace that day. No one really bothered her early, and it was kind of a tricky racetrack too. And On Fire Baby hadn't run since the Spinster at Keeneland, so I think she draws a nice attack post today. She can just kind of won over Close Hatches, who I think will probably end up setting the pace and kind of what looks like a paceless race. So just based on maybe smooth forward a little bit more today, I'm just going to give a slight edge.
All right, a little bit of an upset in there. Let's shift our attention now to a race where I said on the handicappers report, speaking of upsets, I think this race, the Maker's Mile at Keeneland, Grade 1 event, in the seasonal debut of two-time Horse of the Year, Wise Dan, the race goes through him. He's my top pick, sentimental choice, but I said during the handicappers report, you know what, if you're playing picks or whatnot, I think Lochte is a little bit interesting. I think Reload is a little bit interesting. I even think Gentleman's Kitten is interesting. And that said, Jeff Carlin added in Za Approval, and I said, you know what, I wouldn't argue with that one. But to me, Lochte and Reload, I may play some pick threes and just play around with those two, because I think if Wise Dan does get upset, it may balloon up those picks. But again, I think the race goes through Wise Dan. Don't think he's invincible, because you never know. I mean, this is a 7-year-old. How will he come back? But certainly, this guy, you know, on the numbers and being right in his comfort zone, a mile on the turf, he's the one to beat.
This is one heck of a tough spot to come back in, Seth. There's no doubt about it. You mentioned Approval. Reload, very good down at Gulfstream this year when Chuck put him over on the turf. Lochte, who's a fan favorite of mine, who's been good to me this winter, really impressed in his last two. So if there's a spot to beat Wise Dan, it very well could be today. As he hasn't run since the Breeders' Cup Mile. Could need one off the shelf. Like you said, he's 7 years old now. There's no doubt he's the horse to beat, but if you're ever going to try to beat him, today might not be the worst spot in the world to do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those situations, he comes and he runs well today, then next time out, you know what you got. But first of the season, a little bit of a layoff, 7-year-old. If they're going to take a shot, this is probably the spot to do it. And you'll get some value taking a shot with some horses that have some real talent. So a couple of nice Grade 1s on the Friday afternoon cards at the various racetracks. Now let's shift our attention out to Saturday. First up, we'll look at the 2-3-year-old races that are going to attract all the attention. And we'll key in right off the bat on the Bluegrass tomorrow. Bluegrass, $750,000 on the synthetic surface. They're going a mile and an eighth. And it's between the two races, I certainly think that the one that is going to attract more attention going into the Kentucky Derby will be the horses that come out of the Arkansas Derby. This race just looks like it has, you look at the morning line favorite, Bobby's Kitten. This is a turf horse. So I think there's some real question marks about these horses, but it is a very interesting field. And Brian, while we talk, going to go back to the Palm Beach, and this is a grass stakes race down at Gulfstream on March 1st. We're going to watch the number 9 Gala Award get up late for Todd Pletcher. Gala Award in here, 3 starts so far. Again, all 3 of them on the turf, but on the synthetic surface, I think Gala Award is kind of interesting, although the outside post position is going to be something to overcome. We took a look earlier this week at Medal Count winning the Transylvania. I think the quick turnaround shows some real confidence from Dale Romans. I mentioned Bobby's Kitten. That one, of course, is going to be very interesting. A couple others in here that I think stand some chances in a race that looks kind of wide open to me, including Extra Sexy Hipster for Mike Trombetter, who I think is better than that performance in the Gotham. But what was your thought in the Bluegrass?
Well, I think you hit it right on the head. Bobby's Kitten, you said he's a turf horse in this race. Well, that's because this is a turf race.
Yeah.
Can we just fast forward to next year when we can start talking about this race on dirt? But with that being said, throw a dart at the board and try to come up with something, I guess. This is all about the trip, who's going to get first run kind of a thing. These races, especially this past, early on at Keeneland, they scraped this track up pretty good, and it just seems like nobody can last on the lead no matter how fast or slow they go. Seth, I landed on Medal Count here. Like you mentioned, Roman sends him right back on 8 days rest. That's a confident sign to me. He's got to win over the track. He's going to fit that profile of a horse running late. He's by Dynaformer. He's got a great pedigree. I just landed on him because no one else in here really intrigues me, and I don't think you can trust anyone else here either. So Bobby's Kitten, to me, might be the most talented 3-year-old on the planet, but he's such a head case. He wants to run off in these races. We saw it in the juvenile last year. So, you know what? If they can ever get him to figure him out a little bit and get him settled down early, this horse could be a freak. But until I see that, he's just tough to trust at 3-1 in a deep field, over a surface he's never tried before either.
Another horse I find interesting. What do you think of Vincent Ramos?
Well, Seth, we've seen Pletcher do this before. I think Palace Malice, second or third maybe in this race last year. Don't quote me on that. But, so I don't think this is out of his element. I didn't really know what to make of those Tampa horses. And we saw Ring Weekend didn't do anything last week at Calder. I know he had a tough start, but he's still supposed to win that race at 1-5. So, Vince Ramos, if you can get the 8-1 or so on him, he's definitely playable here. And even extra sexy hipster sets that you mentioned, I kind of agree with you on that because I don't think Mike Trombetta would ship here just to get his head beaten in, So I think this horse is definitely better than what the Gotham showed, and maybe Mike thinks he might take to the surface as well.
Yeah, as I say, an interesting race. You got a nice full field. I think there'll be some value there. But moving forward to the Kentucky Derby, I'm not sure what we're getting out of this race. But as I said, I'm a voter in that ESPN poll. I went over my top 10 a little bit earlier, and 4 horses currently on my Derby top 10 in that ESPN poll will be running in the Arkansas Derby down at Oaklawn tomorrow. So things are going to get a little more defined for me, no question about it. And Brian, while we talk, we'll look at the February 13th allowance race at Santa Anita. Bayern in the second career start, 3-5 winner, 15 length winner, but that was only the second career start. 2 for 2 has shown all kinds of talent for Bob Baffert, but there is some seasoning question marks. Conquest Titan is very interesting to me from Mark Casse. I think this horse is better than we saw in the Tampa Bay Derby. Commissioner for Todd Pletcher's in here. Strong Mandate, folks still like that one as well. Ride on Curlin is interesting. And at the top of my ESPN list is Tapiture. We had Frank Miramati on yesterday, and we went back to that Southwest victory for Tapiture in the 3-year-old debut. I think he is going to be very interesting tomorrow. Again, like the Bluegrass, I think this is a talented, interesting field where there might be some value. But unlike the Bluegrass, I think some real contenders will come out of the Arkansas Derby tomorrow.
Yeah, well said. So this is the race of the weekend, no doubt about it. Arguably the race of the winter, spring. I landed on Bayern and said this, if maybe for no other reason, as I've never been a huge Tapiture fan, and frankly, Strong Mandate disappointed the heck out of me last time. So, we've seen Baffert come in. He wins all these Oaklawn Stakes with these horses. And, you're showing this run here at Santa Anita. The horse just freaked, which was his first 2-turn start, too, which I think is somewhat noteworthy. I didn't like that he missed the San Felipe, that he's maybe had a little issue with his foot. But if he's here on Saturday, and Bob thinks he's ready, that's good enough for me. I think he drew well. He should be able to sit right off maybe the early speed. This horse has a little Bodemeister in him to me.
Yeah.
That's a little much at this point, but that's kind of who he reminds me of a little bit. And the other thing I think, Seth, this horse has to be cranked on Saturday. If they want to run in the Derby, he needs at least to run second. So I think maybe he's going to put up a bigger shot than a Tapiture who's got points, doesn't have to win. Strong Mandate, I love the jockey switch to Saez. I thought Rosario gave him 2 terrible rides in his last 2 races. But from way out there, he just really disappointed me last time, Seth. And I think he had a two-pass pressing trip on Ride on Curlin. He couldn't even beat that horse to the line, So I've been a Strong Mandate apologist for about 3 starts now. But, he's got to he needs to do more. Let's just put it that way. Now, the price will be right tomorrow if you still believe, but I just went 8-3-9 here. It chalked out completely, but that's just kind of how I thought. I thought those 3 horses were just better than the commissioners of the world. And Conquest Titan, if the pace falls apart, he's definitely interesting underneath. I just I don't know if he's good enough to do much better.
Let me ask you about Bayern. Now, Bayern, let's say freaks again and runs big tomorrow. What's your confidence level going into the Derby? How much credit do you give to these historic trends? I give it a lot of credit, but we are in the 21st century and training has changed. So eventually some horse who hasn't raced as a 2-year-old will break through in the Kentucky Derby in the modern era. What kind of credibility will you give Bayern off of a win tomorrow?
1,000% toss-out, as well as with Constitution as well. Because, like you said, we've seen different things. We've seen the 5 weeks of the preps and all that kind of stuff, the poly horses, the turf horses. it's been 1882, Seth. You know, and there's been better horses than Bayern and Constitution that have tried and failed. So until that one gets broken, anybody that did not race as a 2-year-old will not appear on any of my tickets in the win column. That, I think, is as meaningful a stat as you can possibly ever come up with in racing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think seasoning makes a big difference, and you know, how do you go against a historical trend that long? As I say, though, it is the 21st century. I think somebody will get through it eventually, but I'm with you. Until it happens, I'm going to go against. Let's go back to Keeneland now. Both tracks, Keeneland and Oaklawn, have nice undercards as well. That Oaklawn handicap with Will Take Charge is just phenomenal. But let's go back to the Jenny Wiley at Keeneland. Grade 1 event for fillies and mares, going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. This is a fun event. Graham Motion right now just seems to be on a little bit of a roll. I love Augustin runners, particularly when they're trained by Jonathan Shepard. But the last few years, Graham Motion has gotten some good ones too. He's got Kitten's Point in here. Stephanie's Kitten for Ken Ramsey and Chad Brown. Emotional Kitten for Ken Ramsey and Wesley Ward. Abaco for Shug McGahee, who over the past few years has been so potent on the turf. But really interesting on the outside, you have Center Court coming off of a win down at Gulfstream, and the really, really nice New York-bred Discreet Mark. How'd you see the Jenny Wiley?
Well, that Kitten's Point was literally my biggest play of the year in her last start, and I still don't know how she didn't win that photo. So I'm coming right back to her on Saturday. I thought her win to start the year at Gulfstream was freaky good. She was best to me last time, had to thread through some traffic on the turn, and I still don't know how she didn't win. But I think tomorrow, third start of her form cycle, she's got, she's been tested now by these kind of fillies, by a Center Court, draws well at the rail, and to me, I think she just mows them all down, catches Stephanie's Kitten at the right time, too. I mean, hasn't been out since last fall. So to me, I think Kitten's Point will get there come hell or high water Saturday.
Sounds good. And again, a couple of really nice cards at Keeneland and Oaklawn.
Yeah, it's nice to see Will Take Charge. He's fallen. I think we talked about this last year. He's that old Lucas Warhorse. He's going to dance every dance, and he's run 2 big ones this year. Just got a little unlucky. So yeah, it'd be nice to see him break through. And he's as good as a handicap horse as we have. I think on the on a fair track, going a mile and a quarter. So it's great to see him back and firing and running well, as opposed to some of these 3-year-olds that just don't reproduce that form.
And kind of the fun plot line as well that may make it worthwhile paying attention to the paddock. Marino also in there. So the rematch from the Travers last year, as well as the Pennsylvania Derby, but that adds a little intrigue over there as well. Brian, before I let you go, I just wanted to touch on, because we've talked about it for the past week or so, certainly since the Gulfstream meet ended, and you had a great online column, going back, 3 or 4 weeks now, where you noted this Rainbow Six, chasing the consolation down at Gulfstream, is really worthwhile. Subsequently, I hit for $1,500, so I totally agree. But we talked over the past week or so. How do you think it's going to play out now that this championship meet is ended? Now, last weekend, the consolation pool, the pool that was getting put in every day, was still staying right up there in that $400,000 range. What do you think is going to happen over the next few weeks, though?
Well, you take the words right out of my mouth, Seth, because I was interested in seeing what kind of play it would get. So I did give a little peek at one of the charts last week, and I think it was like $398,000. So I was a little surprised at that. I had to do some odds work for them, their card today, so I looked it over. It's not terrible, but they're only getting 8 races, and I still think the money will still get in there, but I kind of think it's begrudgingly going in there, because it's just not a very good product now. It's only going to get worse once, at the main track at Aqueduct. We've got Keeneland, the Belmont will be in full swing soon. So I still think it's just so robust now that they're going to get handle stuff, but it doesn't mean we have to like it. I don't disagree with what Tim Ritvo did. Let's be honest, it's a good business move, to keep this thing going. They have a subpar product now. They don't race too much, so it's a guaranteed interest builder. I can't claim foul on what they're doing in the least. It's a good idea, when the goal is to make money, and it's a great idea that they're stringing this out. But I think, it might put a sour taste in people's mouths just because the product's just not there. It's a lot of guessing work now, and especially if you're only going to run twice a week or 3 times a week, it's tough to get a feel on how a track's playing, or you got some horses that you're just not familiar with. So it's going to be a real challenge for handicappers.
And I will be interested to see. I was interested to see last weekend, but now this weekend as well, because we'll be 2 weeks out. I think it's going to become a little more apparent to people that championship meet is ended. This is a new season at Gulfstream. So will it keep up? But we've talked a little bit about on the show, and folks have said, some folks' opinion was, once some of these big players have played in, then you kind of still have to keep chasing, perhaps. And so it's going to be interesting. I mean, the pool is still up there, well over $4 million. And if the consolation pot stays the same, I have to admit, I'll probably keep playing in, because that, now you're playing in for a 20-cent increment. You're playing in for pools of 350,000 or 300,000, something like that. And it's still a fun bet to me. So I'll be interested to see if other people are thinking like I am, or it kind of deflates a little bit. And then at which point I think it becomes less interesting for everybody. But that final day, it's going to go crazy no matter what.
Yeah, I think you're right, Seth, and you should still keep playing. There's no wrong with playing a $30 or $40 ticket. Now, I don't know what the prices were on your $1,500 ticket, but I can pretty confidently say you got a heck of a lot more than you should have gotten, probably, right? So you have to play.
Absolutely, it was I spent $32, got $1,500, and so as you can imagine, with a $32 ticket, I think I had a couple of horses that were in the $14 range. And other than that,
people don't realize. You don't need to blow up the tote board. You need, you need one horse over $10, and maybe as long as there's not a 3 to 5 favorite, it doesn't take a lot. And I think that's what people are missing on this. When you're pumping $400,000 in a day, it doesn't take a heck of a lot to really blow up a ticket, and you know firsthand now.
Yeah, it's been a fun bet, but it is going to be interesting to see how it plays over the next couple of months, if it holds up. And again, with shorter fields and whatnot, seems like it almost has to, but we'll see how it plays out.
I think it's almost impossible that it gets there, to be quite honest with you. Like I said, short fields, so much money in there now, so much coverage. I think it's, barring 440 to 1s, I just don't see how it happens. So I think circle June 29th on your calendar, I guess.
Yeah, and again, that is going to be a lot of fun. I can't even imagine what gets played into the pool that day.
Yeah, I mean, geez, maybe well over 10 million, 20 million. I don't know.
That's what I'm wondering. Would it double? It's going to be really, really interesting to see, just from kind of a social study kind of an aspect. No question about it.
Yeah, I think the carryover might be, let's just stretch this thing out upwards of 7 or 8 million by that point. So it almost has to be it will be a ginormous day in racing if that goes down. That's for sure. And you know darn well that's what they're hoping for.
Oh, absolutely. That was clearly the game plan, no question about it. All right, Brian, as always, we appreciate the visit. Good luck with the selections this weekend. We'll talk to you again.
Thanks, Seth. Take care, buddy.
Brian Nadeau from HorsePlayerNow.com. We kicked things off with the guests this morning with Keith McCalmont from Woodbine. They open up tomorrow. All right, one more reminder. Tomorrow, the Cortland branch, it is a Fan Appreciation Day. So if you're a Cortland branch customer, get over to your local OTB parlor tomorrow for Fan Appreciation. Going to wind things up for Racing Across America, not only for this morning, but for the week as well. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 to 11 a.m. Earlier, handicapper support 9 to 10. Jeff Carl and I were in this morning. Hope we gave you some good advice and you cashed some tickets this afternoon. Don't forget, programming tomorrow. Mark Cassano on with Down the Stretch. Handicappers report before that, but no programming, no live programming on Sunday. Palm Sunday this Sunday, Easter Sunday next week. OTB is closed. Keep that in mind. But again, all the regular programming on tomorrow, Saturday. As far as the Racing Across America week of programming, we'll kick back in, looking back at a nice stakes weekend on Monday morning at 10 a.m. We'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.